The president of Guatemala, Bernardo Arévalo, and the outgoing president, Giammattei, started transition and power handover process. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. announced during the Asian Leaders Summit that his country will share the bloc in 2026 in place of Myanmar. The African Climate Summit in Kenya moves ahead, intended to force a common position ahead of upcoming global conferences and discuss how to finance the continent's environmental priorities. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The President-elect of Guatemala, Bernardo Arévalo, assured on Monday that he received an official proposal from the outgoing President Giammattei for the governmental transition for the next January 14th, the date of the inauguration. The President-elect indicated in a press conference after the meeting that the proposal of the current President will be analyzed to organize the work schedule for the transition of power. The meeting of both politicians was supervised by the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Luis Almagro, in view of the increase in tensions in Guatemala. The tensions originate from the attempts of the Guatemalan Public Ministry to suspend the Semilla movement, which nominated Arévalo since last July 12, following Arévalo's second place in the first electoral round on June 25th. This is the first meeting of both after the victory of the academic on the ballot of last August 20th. In Argentina, political and social organizations took to the streets on Monday to protest against an event in the Buenos Aires legislature they denounced as denialist and celebratory of the last civil-military dictatorship. Vice presidential candidate Victoria Villarroel from the far-right political party Liberty Advances organized the event on Monday to honor what she called as victims of terrorism during the last military dictatorship in this country. However, human rights activists and social leaders say the event intends to vindicate the last dictatorship, denying the horrors caused by a regime that tortured and disappeared 30,000 people. In this context, human rights organizations, unions, political parties, and social movements marched to reject the act and uphold their demand for justice and truth regarding the crimes committed during this period of the country's history. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro praised the closure of the fourth round of negotiations between the Colombian government and the ELN. In this way, Maduro ratified his country's willingness to contribute to peace in the neighboring country. The Venezuelan president reaffirmed that peace in Colombia is urgent and cannot be postponed in order to achieve the project of his Colombian counterpart, Gustavo Petro. He also congratulated both delegations and expressed his satisfaction for having achieved progress in terms of humanitarian dynamics and the reduction of the armed conflict.
We have ratified this with our special envoy, the General and Ambassador to Colombia, Martinez Mendoza, who read an official document from the Venezuelan government to welcome the success of these negotiations here in Venezuela, as well as with the intervention of our Chancellor Iván Gil to close this day. I think it has been a very profitable day, and I think they are making progress. They are making progress. It has been a successful, profitable day of peace for Colombia. The peace of Colombia is the peace of Venezuela. The happiness of Colombia is the happiness of Venezuela. That is why we are ready to do whatever has to be done for the peace of Colombia.
After a meeting with Foreign Minister Iván Gil, President Maduro reaffirmed that the negotiation processes should be sped up in order to achieve peace for the Colombian nation.
The only thing I could say to them is that they should speed up the negotiation processes, because Colombia urgently needs peace. Ask them to speed up everything. If I could transmit a feeling, if I could express a thought, a historic desire of Venezuela after 70 years of war in Colombia, on behalf of the 6 million Colombians living in Venezuela, I would tell them privately to speed up the negotiations, to reach a definitive agreement, that they should not take 3-4 years for this agreement, as happened in the negotiations between Santos and the FARC. 4, 5, 6 years, no. If they are clear that the peace is the way forward, they should speed up the process.
Our colleagues Adriana Sivori and Marcos da Silva continue finding and collecting stories that showcase Venezuelans' daily life, their creativity, resilience, and capabilities. In a new episode of our series, Venezuela on the Move, we learn about the work of a group of women in Petare neighborhood east of Caracas who found in the art of the needles and threads a way to help their community and sustain their households. Their workshop serves as atelier for repair and crafting and also as a school for younger apprentices and is a vivid example that every shining diamond starts as a humble charcoal piece. Let's see.
Inside the shop, Irene slows down the foot pedal. She attends to her first customer. At the age of 19, she felt the texture of fabrics for the first time, and to this day, she hasn't stopped stitching.
This is our trench from where we help the community. Here in this workshop, we generally do repairs for the community at a very low cost. And the only thing we charge for is labor as people bring their own materials.
The cost is the equivalent of $1. They also make uniforms, shirts, and t-shirts for companies, which gives them a little more profit. Raquel is the eldest in the workshop, and her skill in handling the thread and needle makes her a master of the trade.
In all these years, I have also helped several people in the community sew, to learn how to sew. Family members and non-family as well, neighbors, because my whole life has been sewing.
These sewing machines don't stop. At least 10 people a day show up at the shop asking for their services. One of the young women works part-time. Her passion for sewing has brought her here.
What I used to do was mainly sewing. I had no idea of how to cut. And after the classes I have done here, I now know how to cut. I identify myself more with children's clothes. I love working with baby clothes. I make headbands, bows. I make tutus. I love my country. I believe in my country, and I think there is a lot of potential here.
This cut and sew shop is located at the hills of one of the urban areas where people with low income live. It was founded in 2011, and since then they haven't lost a thread. The formula, they say, is to help the community.
Marcos da Silva y Adriana Sivori, teleSUR, Caracas.
You can find more episodes of our series Venezuela on the Move in YouTube and in other platforms. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The 43rd Summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is underway in Indonesia in the city of Jakarta. During his opening speech, the Indonesian President Joko Widodo called for the unity of the regional bloc and stressed its neutrality in the midst of the tensions between great powers. The member countries hold a plenary session while the event continues with the inaugural Asian Indo-Pacific Forum in the evening. The Asian leaders are expected to review the implementation of a 5-point consensus signed in 2021 to seek a peaceful solution to the conflict in Myanmar. The group's leaders will also focus on strengthening regional integration and expanding collaboration in key areas such as the digital and green economies. Asean gathers Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam.
We realize that the world is not right. The challenges ahead are increasingly difficult as a result of the struggle for influence of the major countries. But Asean has agreed not to be a proxy for any power and to cooperate with all for peace and prosperity.
On Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. announced during the Asian Leaders Summit that his country will share the bloc in 2026 in place of Myanmar, which has been led by a military junta since the 2021 coup. The announcement brings forward the Philippines presidency by 1 year and effectively excludes Myanmar from the rotation. The head of the Myanmar military junta, Min Aung Hlaing, has not been invited to the meetings due to lack of progress on the 5-point consensus, which includes an end to violence and dialogue among all parties to the internal conflict and was agreed upon in April 2021 during an Asian meeting in Jakarta. Although the junta is not represented in the summit in Jakarta, the head of Myanmar's Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, King Kinyu, took part in a panel discussion and said that issues of food security and new imports from Indonesia had been discussed. Thousands of people mobilized in Skopje, capital of Northern Macedonia, in protest against a corruption case linked to oncology drugs. The scandal erupted following a series of media reports alleging that staff at an oncology hospital were reselling expensive drugs on the black market. Among the protesters were several people who said their relatives had died after receiving placebos instead of proper chemotherapy because the drugs had been stolen. Meanwhile, last Friday, police raided the hospital and the homes of 2 staff members, confiscating documents, computers, and data drive. However, no arrests were made and no charges have been filed.
Trying to help people? You can see how they have been helping. They have been stealing cancer drugs and reselling them on the black market.
Three dead and at least 3 missing, the partial toll of the flood registered in Spain last weekend. Cádiz, Segovia, and Tarragona are the provinces that registered the highest accumulation of rainfall on Sunday. The downpours killed 3 people. Police said a young man died after getting trapped in a lift that filled up with water. The body of another man, aged 50, was found in a river near the town of Camarena, and a third man died inside a flooded vehicle. The Civil Guard is currently searching for 3 missing people, 2 of them in the province of Madrid. So far, the general forecast of the state weather agency assures that cloudy skies and precipitations will continue in most of the peninsula until after midnight. Scientists warn that extreme weather such as heat waves and storms is becoming more frequent and more intense as a result of climate change caused by the burning of fossil fuels.
Yesterday was catastrophic. This is to say, we went through a fear that we had never experienced before. Everyone screaming for help, a lot of helplessness. I would define this with a lot of helplessness, because everyone was screaming and we couldn't go out to help them.
Typhoon Haikui, the 11th typhoon this year, made landfall Tuesday morning off the coast of Fujian and Guangzhou provinces in southeastern China, leaving at least 3 people missing. Local authorities carried out an evacuation in all maritime areas east of the city of Guizhou in the Canton province, with thousands of boats moored and hundreds of thousands of people taking shelter. More than 500 trains in Canton and 23 sea passenger routes east of Heizhou were cancelled as part of the prevention measures. Before making landfall, Haiku passed over the Chinese island of Taiwan on Sunday with maximum sustained winds of 101 km per hour and gusts of up to 126 km per hour. In Taiwan, more than 3,000 people were evacuated and over 74,000 homes were left without electricity supply due to heavy rainfall. Hong Kong's top court ruled on Tuesday in favor of recognizing same-sex civil unions, but stopped short of granting full marriage rights, in a partial victory for the city's LGBTQ community. Over the past decade, LGBTQ activists in the former British colony won partial victories in the courts, overturning discriminatory government policies on visas, taxes, and housing allowances. The court gave a 2-year deadline for authorities to comply with the ruling by creating a framework leaving the government and legislature free from opposition to decide the details. But it stopped short of ruling on full marriage equality for same-sex couples. Since Hong Kong was returned to China in 1997, it enjoys a semi-autonomous status that allows it more freedoms than mainland China, and its legal system is governed by European Union rules.
First thing to say is that this is a significant judgment. It will have serious and long-term impacts on the recognition and treatment of same-sex couples here in Hong Kong and those who are coming from abroad.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Israeli forces on Tuesday killed one Palestinian youth and seriously wounded another during an armed raid on a refugee camp in the northern occupied West Bank town of Tulkarem, damaging the site's infrastructure. The Palestinian Ministry of Health announced the death of Ayed Sami Khaled Abu Harb, 21, at 8:15 a.m. local time, saying he was shot in the head. In the assault on the refugee camp, there were several clashes between occupation troops and Palestinian resistance, and Israeli forces destroyed roads, monuments, several homes, and bridges. In the latest incident in a wave of violence that has lasted more than a year and has reached levels not seen in the territory in nearly 2 decades.
The Israeli army stormed the refugee camp with tanks and aircraft, causing significant destruction last night. They demolished 4 shops owned by peaceful traders who were innocent. They also shattered the windows of the mosque and destroyed the street. A martyr fell, who was in front of his house, as they opened fire on him, and his brain scattered before our eyes. He was an innocent person who had done nothing wrong.
The African Climate Summit in Kenya moves ahead, intending to forge a common position ahead of a coming global conference and discuss how to finance the continent's environmental priorities. At the start of the summit, the President of Kenya, William Ruto, called for all African states to unite to fight the climate crisis, which he described as the greatest challenge to the existence of all living beings. The event, convened by the African Union, will take place in Nairobi until September 6. More than 20 heads of states and government, as well as leaders of regional and international organizations, are expected to participate. At the end of the summit, the adoption of the so-called Nairobi Declaration, which seeks to articulate a common African position for different global fora, is foreseen. During his speech, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for making Africa a renewable energy superpower.
With adequate access to financial resources at reasonable cost and technological support, renewables could dramatically boost economies, grow new industries, create jobs and drive development, including by reaching the over 600 million Africans living without access to power. Renewable energy could be the African miracle, but we must make it happen. We must all work together for Africa to become a renewable energy superpower.
In Kenya, U.S. envoy John Kerry says that he hopes China and the U.S. can come together on climate at the African Climate Conference in Nairobi.
It's the 2 largest economies in the world, the 2 largest emitters in the world. I hope we could come together because I think it would be an important, providing it's substantive, and we're going to agree to do some things, I think it would be very important to other workings of the COP and to the prospects for winning this battle, which we need to do.
September 5th marks International Indigenous Women's Day, a day that recognizes the incredible work of Indigenous women in bringing about change around the world. UN Women highlights the fundamental role played by Indigenous women in the preservation of their culture, languages, and traditions, and recognizes their leadership and capabilities for action in the protection of the environment and biodiversity and in the fight against climate change. The date was chosen in memory of Bartolina Sisa, an Aymara woman who was assassinated by a royalist force in Upper Peru. Sisa led, together with her husband, the warlord Tupac Katari, and on equal terms, the indigenous insurgency known as Aymara Quechua. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.